Okay, now as you can tell from what you obviously saw there, this is another bit of a talk about dating in Australia and how much of a bloody futile effort it is. I do want to point out in this video that there's something I tend to notice quite a bit when dealing with American subscribers. It seems to happen far more with Americans than British, and that is trouble understanding other cultures. It's like as though they can't understand a world that didn't run along the same lines as America. Now, with the British expats that come out here, and a lot of British in general, even ones here on holidays, they have a very good sense of a life outside of England and how things work so dramatically elsewhere. Now, a lot of this has come from the British having an empire, the British Empire. They've always got some uncle, great uncle, who served in the army in India, or Burma, Kenya, or one of the quasi-states, quasi-colonies, protectorates, or even places like Egypt where they weren't any one of those things, but they basically controlled the joint just by sheer threats of shooting the king's castle down with medium-range artillery jammed right against his front fence, and things like that. Because of the British Empire and people working, people just being in the British Army, coming back and telling stories, the British themselves has a very good sense of a culture outside of their own, a world and life and country that runs on entirely different principles from England itself. And, dealing with people who are not English. With the Americans, that is absolutely not the case. And it sort of, from time to time, becomes fairly obvious. Now, some of you may know a few things about Japan. I'm not going to assume you do, or I'm not really going to assume you don't, but you may have heard of what they call herbivores. These are basically young men in their 20s in Japan who have completely given up on trying to find women. And look, let's face it, their life, and they'll tell you this is part of the definition, revolves around video games, and any love they have is actually, they're attracted towards these cartoon porn figures. It's as simple as that. They've got names for and everything, like some of these, well, like cartoon characters do. And yeah, that's... if it's not a world of anime, it's a world of blooming video games that they're stuck in. And, over there are some truly fucking perverted video games. I mean, some of them are shown on YouTube. And they involve, stalking girls in train stations, and as they get on trains, and you get extra points if you basically grab their girl parts and stuff like that. I mean, this is how fucked up that country is with perversion. But on top of that, some of you might have wondered about Japanese porn being censored. I'll just touch on that briefly. That was actually part of the deal of them retaking control of their country after the American occupation, was that they had to have any pornography censored. And that still has lasted right to this day. But that's about the only thing that they're not perverted on. But the reality of the situation is, if you know people who have lived in Japan, and there are plenty of American men who have gone over there, who are literally about my age, they will tell you straight up that girls will be friends with you but never, ever think you've got a chance with these girls. and they will tease you and they'll string you out, but you'll never have a chance, and the only reason they're really hanging around with you is to improve their English speaking ability. It's a simple, sad fact, and this has led to this saying. I'm not going to call it a rumour because it's really not a rumour. It's just a statement that's floating around where they believe the Japanese will be essentially extinct in 100 years' time because of the dramatically low birth rates, which, essentially are caused by the way the dating scene is, or should I say, isn't. Now, I'll leave links in the description below for the screenshots that you saw at the start of this video, but it is one of those ones you'll see. It talks about the culture of this country very often will follow parts of American culture. It's one of these things, we've got our own culture in Australia, but there's a fair chunk of it that's been taken from British culture, and let's face it, my great-great-grandparents come from southern England. On the other side of the family, I'm actually Irish. I'm basically half Irish, half English. That's another little secret about Australia that you might not know. Everybody assumes we're British. We're not. The majority of us are actually half Irish, half English. And early days, the Irish and the English didn't get on at all. Even through the days of my grandmother being a kid, she told me about them. Protestants go up one side of the road, Catholics go up the other side of the road when you walk to school. But you go to the same school. And then she grew up to go ahead and marry an Irishman. So, there you go. One of these strange things where reconciliation mightn't have been the case elsewhere, but after years of living together here, we come together and we just bred in together, and most of us are literally half Irish and half British. And there's often a bit of Scotch and Welsh, and yes, with me there is Scotch and there is Welsh, and the Welsh were super wealthy. Anyway, getting off track. The thing is, many times we end up with bits of culture borrowed from other cultures. We have taken on a fair bit of other cultures when it comes to food culture in this country. There's quite a lot of Italian food we have adopted, but we're still stuck with many of the British things, and there's a bit of American food influence, but there's a lot of popular culture that's brought from America as well. But as this newspaper article investigates, often America will have something happen in each culture, and I hate to say it, but essentially a lot of our culture, even though we've got distinct parts of it, there is a lot borrowed from Britain and from America. And there's one thing that America picked up on, and usually we would be expected to pick up on it at a certain amount of time later. And we didn't, with this particular part of the culture, and that was the dating culture. Now, the sheer fact of the matter is, it's ridiculous. You've got women here who, I'll explain it in detail here. I have so many women I work with, I come across, that are basically 45 and older. It's the generation that, well, maybe one or two generations above me. They're fine. There are so many of these people that go on the internet, find love, and they're, bang, it's not a problem. One couple I know, who I've known the wife for years, they met in a church, but they personally know 3 couples who met online. Another guy at work, he knows 2 couples that met online, people he bought a house from, and one of his mates met his wife online. 45 or plus, you've got a high chance of meeting a girl online over here. But then you get to my generation, and that's where the bullshit starts. As one of the articles says, man drought may be a man mountain. Man drought is actually a man mountain. I'm telling you for a fact. That is true. It is very true, that article. There is nothing questionable about that article. I have opened up magazines, and I think this one might have been out of a newspaper, the section that's mainly for girly stuff and fashion and yada 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 and all the big events going on around the city, blah blah blah. And it basically was talking about the man drought, and that the man drought's real. And they sat down there and they went through the numbers. Now, total amount of numbers from men to women. Unlike America, where you've got a slight amount more women than men, here we've got a slight amount more men than women. But it's only a rather slight amount. And, you know, it's like about 1.2% or something. It's just pathetically low. But it is a slightly higher amount. But they got there with the numbers of the men and the women. Then they said, okay, we've got this total amount of women. And now let's look at the men. Okay, we'll mark off all the men that are married. Bang, they're out of the game. Fair enough. Then we'll mark off the gay men. Bang, they're out of the game. And then they marked off the disabled men. Okay, I understand you don't want to marry a guy who's in a wheelchair and only ever going to get a disability pension. Okay, that's understandable. He mightn't be marriage material if you've got to push him around in a wheelchair and wipe his ass. Bang, they come off. Then they took off all the unemployed men. Bang. Then they took off all the short men. Bang. Then they turned around and said, hey, look at the figures. That means there is only one man for every 5 women out there, or 4 women out there, or something like that. And so the odds are stacked against you, and the man drought's real. Note that they didn't take any of the married women out, any of the lesbian women out, any of the disabled women out, including women like one of my aunties who, you know, is 60-something and has the mind of a 10-year-old. We'll leave all those in there. We'll leave in some of the other ones that I used to see on dating sites who were wheelchair-bound, who had cerebral palsy, serious endometriosis, which they still had to get diagnosed, but the tumours continued to grow until they got diagnosed. What was the other one? Spina bifida. You know, some of these things, like, they're already wheelchair bound or they're going downhill. But don't worry, they included all those girls in this study. They included 100% of girls from this age to that age, whether they were Down syndrome or in a mental institution, or married, or lesbian, or whatever. They included a lot of them. And then took all these different men out and said, look, the man drought's real. The man drought is fucking horse shit. That is what it is. I worked at a vineyard, and, you know, out of all the guys who come out of there were, all of us were, you know, either 2 years younger or 2 years old, you know, 2 or 3 years either way of my age. All of us were pretty close in ages. 6 guys to this day. Now that was in 2005. To this day, 11 years later, 1 has got married. 1. That's it. And it's all horse shit, you know. Pure fact of the matter is that I have a lot of women who are older tell me, women who are 45, 50 tell me that I should be just about beating girls off with a stick. I have other guys I work with who tell me the same thing. You know, this is, my looks ain't quite as good as they were when I was 25, but all the same, I'm doing pretty good. And, you know, let's face it, a lot of you guys know, mortgage was discharged on this place, whatever it was, 3 or 4 days ago, as of making this video. You know, this place is worth fucking shitloads, hundreds of thousands. I'm not going to go right into it. You guys may also know about other investments. I'm not going to go into that. But this is the thing, you know, you go out there and you just got no hope. You got single mums with 2 kids and a moustache who telling you that after you have, their entire life is paid for out of the $190 a week tax that I'm paying, but then I've still got to pander up to them to meet their expectations, regardless of the fact that my taxes are paying for their life right now as it is. And they want to be real pickers and choosers while they've got a moustache that you can see in the thumbnail picture and 2 kids, and they live in a bungalow in their parents' backyard. Hey, this joint ain't glorious, I'm not going to admit it, but at least I fucking own it, and I own it 100%. And I'm not even 35. Okay, I will be in a few months. But anyway, I've known guys, I've worked with guys who have held down long-term, full-time jobs. Guy at another vineyard I was at, he'd been there for 9 years solid. Every week, 40 hours a week. And done so a better house in a trendy area. The thing was only about 5 years old. In a trendy area of the city. He had a better car than me. No hope. Not a hope. He was not an ugly guy. No hope. You just don't have a hope here. There isn't a dating culture here. And what there is of it is so exceedingly fussy, unless you are James Bond with millions of dollars and endless amount of time to spend with them, and you're going to be the perfect, automated robot that's programmed to do what they want. You don't have a hope. There's something severely broken in this culture with my generation of white people. If I was Vietnamese, I'd be married. All Vietnamese and Chinese, they're all married by age 26. The whole bang lot of them. Well, 98% of them anyway, in this country. Same goes for the Arabs. I've had Afghanis I've worked with ask me why the hell I'm not married. Why not? What's wrong? And if you've experienced Afghanis, you've spent time with them, even ones in Afghanistan, and you're 30 years of age or more and you're not married, they're starting to look at you like, did your leg get blown off and your balls got taken off with it? How come you're not married? There's nothing that looks physically wrong. They can't make sense of it. And we've got all these people here who can't make sense, including my former multi-millionaire Chinese boss, who couldn't make sense why both of his male employees in their 30s didn't have a girl, and there was no girl even on the horizon, not even a girlfriend, let alone a wife. This is the thing. Things are so stuffed up that it is essentially like Japan. You don't have a choice. You don't have a chance. And when I do see girls walking down the street and I give them a minor glance, they will look back at me as though they are a queen looking down on some scumbag peasant with fleas all over them. I mean, it's that look of, I'm aristocracy and I'm looking down on some hobo peasant. That's the look they'll give you. And this is the thing. I keep hearing all this stuff from Americans. You should have, not a problem, bang, bang, bang. I'm telling you, the culture here is different. There's bits that do not function in this culture. And I know there's problems in all countries, but this is one of our major problems that, is going to stuff us up. And, as white people, I'll tell you quite honestly, in this state that I'm in, 53% of people were born in another country. That doesn't include the Vietnamese who are my age, who were born here, of refugee parents. That doesn't include all the little Arab kids that you see running around. That doesn't include all the Vietnamese kids, Burmese refugees, I know, they're kids who were born here. I'm already in the minority by being born in this country. Add to that being white, 5th generation Australian, and being born in this country. Whoa, I'm one of less than 15%. Seriously though. And I think at the end of the day, if we keep going down this path, we're finished. Another thing I haven't mentioned to you guys, I don't think I have anyway, I am actually the last male in 4 generations. No shit. Henceforth, the feeling of wanting to carry on the family name and have kids, you know, and I've wanted to get married ever since I was frickin' hell in my teenage years, you know. But it hasn't happened, and it can't happen without a bit of, shall we say, a change of scenery. Now, another little thing I'm not exactly going to put in the title is my sister used to be a little bit jumpy about me even being interested in some girls. Hell, I'll tell you a solid fact. One of her friends used to send me letters, and she was burning the damn things. How's that for sticking your nose in people's business? But anyway, I've noticed since I've been up there helping them with their house, they have a dramatic change in attitude. Very much so. She's hit the panic mode that I'll end up single forever. There is somebody who's sort of, it's extended family, my brother-in-law, who I'm going to see in, it's about 3 weeks or something, at this great big bloomin' joint 30th birthday party that that my sister and my brother-in-law are having. And I'm most likely to see her there. She is of Colombian descent. Now, I know when you're dealing with Colombians, through the standardised dating channels, I've seen videos on YouTube about this, it can be rather dodgy. Very dodgy. Talking to them on Skype, they've always got a boyfriend in the background trying to get you to send them money, blah blah blah, you know, the same dodgy shit that you may have heard of coming from Russian women. Having said that, this extended member of the family is Colombian, who come here on her own 2 feet, actually on a skilled migrant visa, because she has qualifications of some kind, I don't know exactly what. And she's from one of the more, shall we say, middle-class families, not the absolute poor favelas families, out of the favelas, which are basically the slums. Yeah, there is quite a surprising willingness of these girls to get married. Now, as I've said, I've seen some of these videos where they, it's fucking bullshit. It's like a fucking slave market. They bring down American men who, you know, divorcees, whoever's willing to come down. Some of them are wealthy guys. I really question how many of them are actually really wealthy. You know, you get truck drivers, unemployed guys, you know, military veterans on a disability pension, you know, and they bring them all down, and they have sometimes 10 guys, sometimes 20 guys, and 200 to 300 Colombian girls who see that little green card and they want to grab it. And there is competition between these girls. The worst part of all is they get these girls who, some of them you can tell are from the favelas, and all too many of them I think are, to be quite honest. And they get them in a bikini to parade up and down a bloody catwalk. A couple of hundred of them with these 20 guys. And the guys will sit there and admit, oh, we're all looking for getting a hot one. Oh, fuck. I'm not looking to buy a girl from a fucking glorified slave market with a different title on the front. I mean, all they needed was a man there with a whip and it would have been a fucking slave market. Fuck that. You're getting girls who are just chasing the money, chasing the citizenship, who are, you know, out of abject poverty, who are then paraded up and down while they've got to compete with all these other girls, and all the prettiest ones get taken because that's what all these tourists coming to look for a wife want. You know, I want a girl who, for a start, isn't quite as skinny as some of them. Put it like that, and not one who, you know, the intentions are all fucked up. They're just trying to escape from poverty, and that's all there is to it. And here, you know, they are looking at them like a catwalk / slave market. That's fucked up, you know. you get the sense there's no real respect there, and it's very thinly veiled what they're looking for, the green card, and very thinly veiled what the guys are looking for is just a hot foreign girl who's desperate, and they're going to this bloody glorified slave market to get them. Fuck that shit. That's where you come unstuck. That's where things get dangerous. But I may get a bit of help from this relatively extended family, and I'm actually learning a bit of Spanish. I must admit, Spanish is a lot easier to learn than French, because I know a bit of French as well. So anyway, fingers crossed, she'll be able to head me in the right direction, and I am certain that I know she's got one sister at least, who's now a single mum, and, you know, let's face it, there are plenty of other girls that she would know. Now, some of these girls are very, I won't say they're desperate, they are just genuine, but you've got to look in the right places. And this is why, and also even if you're meeting one through Skype, it's good to have a contact in the country. Now, not only would I have a contact in the country, but these would be girls who would be known already by these country, you know, Colombian contacts who can tell me straight up, this girl is a good girl, not a slut. This girl is worth having. That one's a bad egg, so I'm not going to introduce that one to you. Boom, boom, boom. And, you know, we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. But I'll give you a couple of examples of how this all is, how dedicated these girls can be. It's not necessarily about desperation. They have very instilled values of family. Now, feminists like to tear all this apart, the old traditional values. You know, you're supposed to... These feminists over here, it's fucking wrong, really. They have all this crap they write in these magazines that you live in the house and he does too. It's only fair that you do half the housework and he does half the housework. Now you're talking about women here that don't work, whose husband comes home from working 10-hour day, 12-hour day, to then be confronted by her with all the self-righteousness in the world, telling him that he has to do more housework because it's only fair that he does 50% of the housework and she does 50% of the housework, and that's fair. And will politely blindside the fact that he's been working 12 hours a day and you are at home with no children and no job. I don't like that sort of bullshit. And the gender roles in Colombia are very set up. They like to be able to do the cooking and the cleaning for you because they feel that they've done their job as a wife. Those gender roles are very well instilled throughout pretty much all of South America as far as I know. And Colombia is especially one of them. And I've been told Mexico is too. And pure fact of the matter is that, you know, I do like that idea because I'm sick of the horse shit that I face in this country. And the pure fact is that I really don't face any horse shit because I'm not getting anywhere at the way I'm going. So things have got to change. There's a story, this guy, Ask Professor, or I should say Ask Professor. He lives over in Colombia. He's got multiple businesses. He's told stories of guys he knows who've gone over there, you know, and just get burnt because they're just dumb. There is no age appropriate. It's not like here where you got to marry a girl within 10 years of your age. But realistically, like I really wouldn't want a girl younger than about 23 anyway, because it's just like they're still kids at that age if they're under that. Probably more be going for a 25-year-old or something like that, 26 at least, you know, something like that. We'll see. But age appropriate isn't really a problem over there. You'll get real old guys with girls who are only 20. It's just the way it is over there. This one American guy talked to a girl on Skype quite a bit and whatnot. Finally came over to Colombia to marry her. Said, oh, geez, I've got a lot of laundry. Can you wash it or whatever? Oh, yeah, okay, no worries. And here you go, here's $5 for the detergent. Not a problem. She'd never asked him for money or anything like that. Anyway, he came around the next day and knocked on the front door and she didn't answer and he could hear the radio playing. So he thought, stuff it, I'm going to walk up the side of the house and walk around the back. And there she was, out the back of the house. She didn't even own a washing machine. She's there with a pot, the scrub and brush and the bar of soap, going like hell on all his clothes and hanging them up on the line. And that's when a little bit in his head sort of clicked and just thought, oh shit, this girl may very well be the one. You see, this is all that you have to do to get a man to trigger in his mind that this girl is the one. Just by taking the initiative to do some womanly thing. But you get these white girls who, oh, don't want to do this, don't want to do that. That's not always the truth. Over here, there are girls who, the only girls who are interested in talking to you and dealing with you, quite honestly, are bogans, which converted out sort of means white trash pretty much. Not entirely, but edging towards white trash. Those girls will talk to you, but sadly a lot of the middle class girls won't. But this is the thing, you know, foreign girls do things as simple as take your clothes and wash them, and then you don't realise you've got a washing machine and they're scrubbing away by hand with your clothes and they're happy to do it for you. And shit like that is what triggered this guy to think this girl's the one. And that's all that would need to happen. But a lot of these white girls, they can't manage any sort of a real thing of gratitude or helping without needing to help or being forced to help, and they short-circuit themselves. And yet if they had it, you know, take a page out of a Colombian girl's book, be a little bit traditional, and you'll get things like that happening. He also spoke about this other case where he knew one guy who's real big, solid dude, 6'4", and him and another guy went to Honduras. Now, apparently, the guys in Honduras are really short, and the girls are very tall. They went to this bar. They were the only two guys in this bar, and these girls, there were literally a couple hundred, about 200 girls and two guys. They actually started fighting each other with knives over what girl was going to, you know, some girls are trying to get the other girls out the door to increase their chances of getting close to these two American guys, to the point that they actually pulled out knives on each other. I'm not joking. They started a knife fight amongst each other over these two guys. Now, if that isn't busting to have a guy, I don't know what is. I couldn't fucking believe it, to be quite honest. It was shocking to think that that's how it is when these girls come across a guy who, and I mean, in these cases it wasn't really 100% that they were American, it was the fact that they weren't short. You know, probably couple a fair bit with the fact that they're American, but those girls here just... Actually, I've seen comment section of how to tell if a girl likes you, and there's stacks of videos on that. And there's some girls who, and they mentioned in the comments, I'm just watching this video to make sure I ain't too obvious. Well, love, if you're not obvious at all whatsoever, don't then bitch that there's no good guys around. I know you don't want to be too loose and too open, but it's got to the point that it's the other way, where they don't put in any effort, and they actually watch videos to tell the secret ways that the body language of a girl showing she likes you, to make sure they're not doing those, to not show it. And those same girls will be there in 10, 15 years time bitching that there's no good guys out there and no guys have any interest in them, while they spend all this time trying not to look like they're obvious, to the point that they actually certain YouTube videos to show that they're not showing any signs that they're interested in the guy. They dig their own grave. They make their own bed and they sleep in it. Anyway, simple as that. There's no chance for me here, and it is a case of Colombia or bust, of all the places in the world.